Welcome along to part 2 of our tutorial where we are creating ourselves a little bio app in Adobe Flash. Last lesson we created two scenes for this app. The first one looked a little bit like this. When I press enter you can see the animation take place. It's like our splash screen, so just a very quick and simple animation. And then our second scene, if I press enter, looks something like that. Okay, it's just a simple animation to display the contents of our app. What we're going to make today in this video is the 4 pages that are still left to be created in this app. Okay, so let's not waste any time, we'll get straight into it. First thing I want to do is go up to my window menu and select the scene panel. That's going to display the number of scenes I've got in my animation or my app at the moment. I want to add a new one in, so I'm going to go down to the bottom left corner and click that new button, and I'm going to rename that scene to Facts. Okay. Now to start with, I'm going to rename layer 1 to Background, and I'm going to do a copy and paste job from the previous scene. So back on the contents page here, our background was that surfer picture, we had the blue box and the name of our app at the top. I want to copy those bits and pieces across to my Facts scene. So I'm going to lock all these layers and then go down to the very bottom one, which is the background, and unlock it. And you can just click on the word background once and that will select everything on the stage that's related to the background. I'm then going to copy it. I'm going to go across to that Facts scene and I'm just going to paste it in place. And that puts it in the same spot that it was on the previous scene. Now we want to rename our header up the top here. So what I'm going to do is delete Bob's Bio app up the top, and I'm going to replace it with some new text. I want you to make sure that your font is Roboto, your style's black, and you should have the same size as what you had on the previous scene, and that was size 65 on mine, so hopefully you've got something similar on yours. I'm just going to click up the top to make sure my colour's white, and I'm just going to write in capital letters, whoops, do that again, Fast Facts. Okay, and using my arrow key I can move that around and get it into the center position. If you can't quite get in the center, you can go across to your align options here, align it to the stage and get it right in the center. Oops, we don't want to do that. Just horizontally align it in the center. There we go, that looks pretty good. Okay, we're actually going to nudge that across to the right a bit later on when we put in a home button. But for now, that's our background done, so we're going to lock that into place and make another new layer. And this second layer we're going to double click on, and we're going to call it Whitebox. Okay, we want to put a white box in to put some writing over the top of it. Okay, we want it to stand out from our background. So grab your rectangle tool, turn your stroke off, you should just have a white fill color, and you're going to simply draw a white square. I'll say about that big. We want to have room for a picture at the bottom, so you don't want to fill up the entire page. Something like that should fit in our 5 quick facts. Now to help that rectangle stand out a little bit on the background, what I'm going to do is click on it with my black arrow and go to modify and convert that to a symbol. I'll just call it white box. Better make that one word. I'm going to leave it as a movie clip and click OK. Now this movie clip, you can come down to your filters over here and add some filters to it. First one I'm going to add is a glow around the outside of the box and make it black. And the second filter, if you just want to have a look at that, you can click off and you can see it's like a little black border actually around the box. It's actually a very small glow. But clicking back on that white box, you can add another filter, and a drop shadow is what we want. We don't need to adjust any of the settings, it should look pretty good as is. And you can see it just popping out off the background now. So I think that looks a bit better than what it was without those shadows and glows. So just click on that box and align it in the center of the page. It's looking pretty good. I might even nudge it up a little bit. There we go. And I'm going to lock that layer now and make another layer. Layer 3, we're going to double click on it and give it the name Text. This is where we're going to put our writing in. Okay, and there's 5 questions I want you to answer about yourself. So I'm going to grab my text tool, keep my font as Roboto, but I'm going to change it to, I might just go to the regular version of that font, so it's a bit skinnier than what it is up there in the heading. We want to have black for our text color, and the size, well, I'm just going to guess that in a minute, but I'll drop it down to around the 20 mark. And I'm just going to write in favorite food. I'll press enter twice. And I'll put in favorite color. Press enter twice. What do your favorite friend? Press enter twice. Your favorite TV show. And finally, your favorite class at school. Bonus points for saying ITS. Alright, so we've got a bit of room still to fill up this box. So what I might do is just nudge it up the top a little bit. And I might just make it a bit bigger. Something like that should look pretty good, and you can just move it around. You can even resize that white box if you need to, just unlock it. You can use the free transform tool to resize that box. Alright, so it should be looking something like that. Okay, your job is to write the answers in. You can do them a different colour if you want them to stand out. It's up to you, but I won't answer those now on mine. What I also want you to do is get a picture in there, something that relates to one of these answers. So if you've got a favourite TV show, I'll just open up my internet here. Go to Google Images quickly. Oops. And my internet's a little bit slow, but bear with me while I get a picture up. One of my favourite shows is Have You Been Paying Attention? Let's see if we've got a picture. Yeah, there's a few pictures around there, so I'll just click on this first one here maybe. Make it a bit bigger. Once it's loaded, I'll copy it. Come back to Flash now. And I'm just going to make a new layer called Image and paste it onto there. And this is going to come out pretty big, so I'm going to have to zoom out. Use my free transform tool to get it down to size. Alrighty, so you probably want it the same width as this box here. So I'm just going to look at this white box, and I can see the width is, I'll make it about 417. So I'll do the same for this one. I'll make the width 417. Oops, before I do that, I need to make sure they're linked. So it resizes in proportion. There we go, that's better. Might fit it in window. A lot of fiddling around here in Flash, but you can see we'll get there in the end, and you should be able to get a picture that fits nicely. Now to match that white box and make it pop out of the background, I might even convert this picture to a symbol. So I'll just Have You Been Paying Attention. I'll just write the initials of it, keep it as a movie clip, and click OK. While I click on it, I'm going to go to the filters, stick that glow around it and make it black. And then I'll put a drop shadow behind it too to help it pop out off the background. Alrighty, so that's looking pretty good. That's not a bad looking fast facts page so far. I'm going to lock all those layers we've got done. And the next thing I'm going to do is make a little home button. Because once we come to this scene, there's no way of getting back to our contents page. So I'm going to put a little home button up in the top left hand corner here. And I'll make a new layer for that. And I'll just call it home. And I'm actually going to unlock my text layer, my background layer, and just nudge this fast facts using my arrow keys across a bit. Okay, don't want to go too far to the edge, but we want to have a little bit of room there to draw in a home button. So I'm going to zoom in a bit here so I can see this home button work nicely. I'll scroll up a bit. Now you want it to fit in this gap here. Alright, so what I'm going to do is grab my oval tool. And before I actually start drawing, I need to make sure I go back and click on the home layer. Every other layer should be locked. And on this home layer, you need to select colors for this button. So I'm going to choose I might even go a white stroke for this one, so it stands out on that dark background. What's going to go with that? I might just choose a light purplish kind of color. And I'm going to draw in a circle. Probably not much bigger than the text. You don't want it too big, this button. Okay, so that looks pretty good. What I'm going to do is highlight all of that and just move it into a good position that I'm happy with. I might need to zoom out in a moment and just check it, but somewhere around there is looking good. Now I want to put a picture of a little home inside of that. And I've actually given you access to an icon, the home icon. So you can pick that up and drag it over to Flash, or you can import it to your stage, whichever you prefer. It does come out pretty big, so make sure you resize it. is here. It's going to take me a few goes. There we go. That's got it down nice and small. It should fit inside that circle. Just nudge it around until you get it pretty much in the center. That's looking like it's in the center right there. Okay, so that's a good looking home button. So to select all of this button, just click and drag over the top of it, or click on the home layer once and that will select everything. You need to convert this to a symbol to make it into a button. So pop on up to your modify menu up the top, go down to convert to symbol and give it the name home, and just make sure that your type is set to button. Okay, it's no longer a movie clip or a graphic. And for some reason my Flash has decided to put a half a house there. It's just lagging. If I scroll down and scroll up, yeah, it'll disappear in a minute. So what we're going to do now is just edit this button to give it an effect. When we push down on it, we want it to change color. So double click on this button now to bring it into isolation mode. Okay, and just click off everything. What I want you to do is look at the states down the bottom here, the different states of the button. When your button's just sitting there doing nothing, that's the up state. It's going to look like it is now. When you hover over it, you can make it a different color, but because this is a mobile app, we don't have a mouse to actually hover over it, so we're just going to leave that empty. When we push down on the button though with our finger, we want it to change color. So in that down state, click on that box and press F6 to put a keyframe in. We're then going to click off everything and then go and click on the purple part only in the background. Not the house, try and get behind the house. There we go, we've got the purple circle selected. I want you to change that purple to another color. So, a bit of a green, doesn't look too bad. It stands out in the background there, and that looks good enough. So when we load our app up, our button's going to look like that purple color. When we hit it with our finger and push down on it, it's going to change to that green. Alright, it's just a simple little effect that you can do to make your app a little bit more interactive. So when you're done, press the back arrow at the top there, and that will have your button in position. Okay, I'm just going to go back and fit it in the window and make sure I'm happy with where it sits. Yeah, that's looking really good. So the last thing we need to do is code up that button to make it go back to the contents page once we press it. So I'm going to lock that. Actually, I won't lock that layer just yet. I am going to make a new layer though. And layer 6 here is going to be called Actions, because this is where we're going to put our action script or our code. It always goes on its own layer. Okay, so first thing we need to do, when we go back to our contents for a sec, we'll have a look at this. When we push the Fast Facts button, it's going to come across to our facts page, and we want it to stop at that point. Okay, we don't want it to go any further. So the first piece of code we need to put in is the stop code. So on your actions layer, click on frame number 1 and go to your window and select actions. You're going to write in the stop code. Okay, so hopefully you know that by now. It's the word stop. You open and close a bracket and then put a semicolon at the end. That just tells our app to stop at this point so people can actually have a look at the fast facts. The next thing we need to code is this button. So to code a button, you need to click on it first once, and go up and give it an instance name in your properties box there. So I'm going to call it home. That should be fine, so just leave it as the word home. Now we can put some code on it and make it work. Okay, so just click off everything and then click once again on that button with your black arrow. Go to your window menu, and we're going to select code snippets. We're going to let Flash do the coding for us. Okay, you don't have to actually write this code from scratch. Flash has written it for you inside the ActionScript folder and then in Timeline Navigation. The one you wanted to select is the bottom one. Click to go to Scene and Play. So double click that. Now your computer might just freeze for a sec while that loads, so let it load in. But when it does, you'll get this big chunk of code that appears in your Actions box. Okay. The first part of this code, this grey part, is what we call a comment. It's not actually code. It's just a part that tells people what's going on below in this code here. Okay, so if you want, you can delete that. There's no need for it there, but it does tell you what this code down here does exactly. So it's always a good idea to have comments in there. It just doesn't need to be that long, so we might even delete that text. Leave those little symbols there though. And inside of them, I'm just going to write home button code. Alright, so we know below here is where our home button code is. So basically, when we click the home button, we need to tell Flash where we want our app to go to. We want it to go back to the contents scene. Okay, so when we press home, we want to end up here. So back in my actions, I'll just bring it up again. There it is. We need to replace where it says scene 3 with the word contents. And because I've used a capital letter at the start of my word, I need to write a capital letter just there as well. It is case sensitive when you do your coding. Alright, so that's all we need to make our home button work. When we push the home button, take us to the contents page. That's basically all it's saying. Alright, so I'll close my action script off. That scene is finished. I'm just going to save that. You can give it a test run as well if you'd like. Okay, we haven't quite finished coding the contents yet, so we won't test it at the moment. I'll wait until I get a few more scenes done first. Alright, so I'm going back to my scenes panel now. I've got the splash screen, the contents, the facts. The next one is the work page. So we're going to make a new scene. Double click on it to rename it to work. And this is made in basically exactly the same way as our last one. So I'm going to do a bit of copying and pasting. The first layer is going to be renamed to background, so just double click on it and do that. You can go back to your fast facts layer. I'll just press page up then to go back to that scene. Page up and page down will flick you between scenes nice and quickly. So that's a little shortcut for you. I just want you to lock all the layers but unlock the background. Click on the word background once and that will select it all. Just copy that stuff there. Press page down to go to your new scene and paste in place, and that will put your background in. Now what you need to do is go up the top and rename fast facts to work. And you're going to have to nudge that across with your arrow keys again to make sure it sits somewhere off to the side and you've got room for your home button over here. Alrighty, that looks alright. The next layer, just lock that one for the time being. We can come back and edit it if we need to. What's the next layer going to be? The next layer, if we just look at the previous scene, the Whitebox. Okay, so I'll lock the background, unlock the Whitebox layer, click on the word Whitebox once to select it, copy it, and I'm going to go paste it in place. Okay, don't forget to give that layer a name. I better call it Whitebox there so we know which object that is on the screen. And I'm going to lock that in place. I'll make another new layer. This time it's going to be our text. Okay, so I might copy that as well. So I'll lock the Whitebox layer, unlock the text and click on it once, copy it, and we'll go and paste it in place. There's going to be some different text written here, so I'm going to highlight all that text and remove it. And I'm going to write in, I currently work at. And I want you to tell me where you work at. If you don't have a job yet, you can leave that question out. The other one is, when I leave school, I would like to, and you need to tell me what sort of job you would like to do when you leave school one day. So that's all the text that you need in that box. If you've got a little bit of room there, feel free to tell me a little bit more about your current job or the job you would like to do when you leave school. I'll even push that down to the next line just to give it a bit of room to breathe from the edge of the page. That's looking good. Alright, so you need a picture in there to go with your work page. I'm not going to bother doing that now. I might leave that out. You know how to do it. I'll just quickly rename this text layer. What you will need for that image is an image layer. Just go and copy and paste one off the internet and make sure you get it the same width as your white box and make sure it fits in that space nicely. Lock both of those layers once you've made them. Okay, and then we're going to go on to the image, after the image layer we're going to make another new layer and it's going to be for the home button. So just write the word home. Now instead of going back to the previous scene to copy and paste, you can actually find all your goodies in your library here. And straight away I found my home button. Okay. It's just a simple job of picking that up and dragging that on your page if you would like. The issue we're going to have with doing that is it won't be in the exact same place as the previous scene. So if I go back to the previous scene, you can see the button moves between scenes. Okay, you want to get that button in the exact same position. So I guess in this case it would be a good idea to copy and paste it. It will save a bit of time, so I'm just going to click on that button and copy it, go back to my work page and paste it in place. Okay, I can see that my work heading there is a little bit lopsided, so I might just move it back towards the center so it looks a bit better. There we go, not quite as unbalanced now. So on that home layer, you're going to need to go to your properties box. Make sure you click on that little home button. Make sure it's got a name up there, which it does. That's good. And we're going to put in some coding in a moment to make it go back to the contents page. So to do that, you're going to need to make an actions layer. This is the last layer we're going to need. And it's basically the same code as what we had before. Okay, so only slightly changes, so don't copy and paste exactly. So first of all, on the first frame of your actions, bring up your actions box and put in the stop code. That just stops our app from going any further when we get to this scene. The next thing, we need to go to our code snippets, and we're going to put this in on the home button, the click to go to scene and play snippet of code. So click on your button first. You must have your button selected. Go back to your code snippets and double click on that piece of code. Okay, up it comes. Just remember, you can, if you want, delete this grey part and just write in home button code. Oops, didn't spell that properly. There we go. And what you need to change again is the green writing here. You want to tell it where you want this button to take you, and we want it to take us back to the contents page. Alright, so that should be all we need to get that working. So I'll save that up. That's our work page done. Okay, I'm just going to go and code up the contents page now for these first two buttons to see if we can get these two working. Okay, we've already got an actions layer where we write our action script in, so let's have a look. Remember that little A stands for action script, and when you click on it you should be able to see some code. Okay, so I've got the stop code in. Next thing we need to do is make these buttons work, so let's click on fast facts first of all. We might have to unlock the layer before we do that. So click on fast facts and give it a name up the top here. So the instance name, we'll just call it, I'll call it facts. That's short and sweet. Can't be any spaces in the name that you choose up here, so that's why I've just chosen the simple word facts. Now when I click on that button, I'm going to go to my code snippets, click to go to scene and play. Okay, it's the same code as before. I'm going to highlight this grey stuff and just delete what's in between those two symbols, and I'm going to write for this one fast facts button code. Okay, so this little section of code is going to be for our fast facts. Now what did I call my fast facts scene? I called it facts with a capital F. Okay, so what I'm going to need to do in my code is delete scene 3 and instead write the word facts. That way when we push the facts button with a click of the mouse, we're going to go to the facts scene. Okay, let's do the same for this work button. So first of all, we need to lock the fast facts layer and click on the work icon there and just unlock it. Click on the work button, give it an instance name up the top. Work is a good name. Then click on the button and go to your code snippets. Actually, we'll just see what we called this next layer. We called it work with a capital W, so that's the scene we want it to go to. So let's put in a bit of code, click to go to scene and play. Okay, again the same piece of code comes up basically. We just want to delete this grey stuff and we'll put in the work button code. And what we're going to do is replace scene 3 with the scene we want to go to, which is the work scene. Okay, so you can see our code starting to grow a bit now. We've got the stop code, which stops our app from going any further. We've got our code to make our fast facts button work, and then down below we've got the code to make our work button work. So we should be able to test this app now, and hopefully these first two buttons work, and then in the other scenes we should have the home buttons that work as well. Okay, so to test, you can press Control Enter. And my screen resolution is a bit out of whack, so this is going to come out really big on my screen. Hopefully it's more of a normal size on yours. As you can see, it doesn't quite fit in the page, but our animation works, and our contents page loads and then stops. We've told it to stop at this point. Okay, from this point we can choose where we want to go. Now to test these buttons, I'm just going to click on this and see if it changes colour. It does. Okay, and it loads up my fast fax scene. In this fax scene we told it to stop when we get to it, so it's sitting here doing nothing at the moment. When we press the home button though, we should see the home button change colour, and it will take us back to our contents. So that's looking good. We'll try the same for work. It changes colour, takes us to the work page. If we click the home button, it takes us back to the home or the contents page. So far so good. What we're going to do next is just finish off our app with the last two scenes, so I'll do those fairly quickly. I'll add them in now. So after work, what have we got? We've got the sport app that we want to put in. Okay, in the sport app, sport page, scene, whatever it is, we'll give it the layer 1 name, we'll change it to background, and we're going to go and copy the background from our previous scene. Okay, so here's our background layer, unlock it, make sure those other layers are locked though. Click on the word background once to select it, copy it, and go and paste in place that background. Don't forget to rename it at the top there to Sport. Okay, if you want you can just align that, maybe centering it will look pretty good. So I'm aligning it to the stage and then clicking the horizontal center alignment button. So that's our background. After that we've got the white box. Oops, got caps lock still on. So back to our other scene to copy that white box over. So I'll look the background layer, unlock white box, click on it once to select it, copy it. Back on my sport layer, I'll paste it in place and lock that layer. After the white box, we've got the text. Okay, so let's go back to our previous scene. We'll lock the white box, click on the text layer and unlock it. And copy that text and paste it in place. Now the text I want you to write for sport, I've got a few things here. Sports I like to play are, you can tell me which sports you like to play, and then write my favourite sporting team is. If anyone writes Brisbane Broncos, they will lose marks. And the last one, my favourite sports star is. Okay, and you can tell me who your favourite sports star is. Don't forget to go online after that. Actually, I'll just lock that layer first. I want you to go into Google Images and find an image to put on the image layer, which will go and fill that gap at the bottom of your page there. You can resize the white box a bit. Don't resize the width, but you can resize the height to give yourself a bit of room to put in a picture of your favourite sporting team or your favourite sporting star. I'm not going to do that now, it's just going to waste time, so I'll keep kicking on. Lock the image layer. Layer 5 is going to be the home button. Okay, so go back to your previous scene, lock the text layer and unlock the home button layer. We want to copy that home button. Back on our sports page now, we're going to paste it in place. And we'll leave it unlocked because we're about to put some code on it. So add in your last layer now, layer 6, and that's going to be renamed to Actions. Okay, that's where we want to put our action script again. So click on frame 1 of your Actions layer. Let's go and put our stop code in first, which stops our app from going any further. The next piece of code we want is the home button code. So click on the home button, make sure it's got a name up there, which it does, and then go to your code snippets panel. We're going to click to go to scene and play. First of all, replace that grey comment there and put in contents, home button code. and just replace that green writing from scene 3 and replace it with contents. Okay, so when we press our home button by clicking on it with our mouse, we are going to go back to the contents scene or the contents page. That's what that code says. Save that, and we're up to our last scene now. So we're nearly done. So I'll go to my scenes panel, make the very last one, which is called travel. And in this one, same as before. Layer 1 is going to be renamed to background. I'm simply going to go to previous scene, unlock the background layer and click on it once to select it, copy it, and then go back to your travel scene and paste it in place. Up the top, travel is what you want the words to say. Don't forget you can align it in the center there. We'll lock that layer, make another new layer called Whitebox. And we will copy that from the previous scenes. I'll click on Whitebox, copy, paste in place, lock it, go to the next layer, and we'll call it text. Back to the previous scene, we'll copy that text, don't forget, paste it in place, and the text we're going to write here, it's going to say, one day I would like to travel to. You can fill out the rest of that. Don't forget to press Shift Enter if you want to go down to a new line, or even just Enter I think works. Yeah, Enter just works, so just press Enter when you want to go down to a new line so your text box doesn't go too wide. And the last question I'm going to have here is, I would like to travel here because, I'll have to push because down to the next line. Okay, so fill up that box with a bit of writing about places you'd like to travel to and tell me why. Lock it when you've done that and make an image layer, and that's where you can put in an image of a place you would like to travel to one day, just to fill up that spare gap. Again, I won't do it right now. Make another new layer called Home, which is going to be for our home button. We'll go back to our previous scene and unlock that home button layer and copy that across. Paste it in place. Make sure it's got a name, which it does, and we'll just put in our last layer, which is Actions. On our Actions, we put the code in, so click on the first frame in Actions, go across to your Actions box and put in the stop code first of all to stop our animation playing when it gets to this scene. And the next thing, click on that Home button, go to your code snippets and select the bottom one, which is click to go to scene and play. Fix up your grey writing, which is the comment, to just say home button code, and replace scene 3 with contents once more. Okay, always double check your spelling when you're writing in code, because Flash is very, very fussy, and if you have the wrong spelling, your code's not going to work, so you must have the correct spelling with the correct capital letters. Alright, so that's all we need on our travel scene. It's done. Sporting scene's done. Work's done. Fast Facts is done. We just need to link up these two bottom buttons, Sport and Travel, and then our app is finished. So very quickly, I'm going to unlock the Sport and Travel button layers. I'm going to start with the Sport button by clicking on it. Give it an instance name up the top called Sport. Go down to your Actions, whoops, sorry, not Actions, Code Snippets. Make sure you've clicked on the Sport button first. In Code Snippets, choose that bottom one, click to go to Scene and Play. And we'll replace this grey stuff first of all. So this one's going to be Sport button code. And we want it to go to the Sport scene when we click on it. Okay, so back in our code here, instead of scene 3, we want it to go to Sport. Okay, so when we click the Sport button with our mouse, we'll go to the Sport scene. Okay, that one's done. We'll lock the sport layer back up, and finally we've got travel. So click on the travel button, give it an instance name up the top called travel. Now we want that to go to the travel scene, so click on the button, go to your code snippets, double click on the click to go to scene and play, and we'll quickly replace this grey writing, the comment, to travel button code, and replace scene 3 down the bottom there to the word travel, or whatever you called your travel scene. Okay, that should be it. I think we might have a finished app, so I'm going to save what I've got, and I'm going to press Control Enter to give it a test run. Now because my screen resolution is a bit out of whack, I'm not going to be able to test that bottom button, but I should be able to go down and test the sport button. It takes me to the right scene. I don't think I can test that other button. I could go into my folder where it's been saved and just have a look at it this way. This way it'll work. I'll test this travel button. Yep, and that's working fine. The home button takes me back to my home page. Alrighty, so I know that was a fiddly app to make and it was quite long, but it's shown you some pretty good techniques on how you can use buttons here, and make your own buttons actually, to get around your little app. Okay, so once you're done, save it up, press Control Enter to publish it, and that will do us for creating the app. In the final part of this video, I'm going to show you how to actually publish it and put it onto your phone, but that will be for a separate video.